Your brain is actually wired to keep you from achieving your goals. You see, every time you try to do something new, uncomfortable, or difficult, your wiring kicks in, not to help you grow, but actually to keep you safe. The reality here is you're not fighting laziness, you're fighting your biology. But as a mature, fully grown man, you are built for adversity, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And in fact, you are the only one in your family who is uniquely and best equipped to overcome your wiring. And it needs to be you. Your family's trajectory depends on it. And in today's episode, I'm going to teach you about the 3 levers you can pull to be able to fiercely face adversity, overcome any obstacle, and accomplish any goal you have for yourself and for your family. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. All right, my friend, today's episode is going to be a little bit off the cuff, which is unusual for me. But hey, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta roll with it, because I was in a conversation with a client this week and we were talking about his journey, and he was, he come a long way. It's just absolutely incredible. But he was saying, sometimes there's just things that I know I need to do, but I don't do them. And sometimes there are things that I don't want to do, but I do those. And he's like, sometimes I just can't help it, but it's like I self-sabotage. And he was using that as a frame to say, hey, thank you for pushing me to do those things that I know I need to do, but I don't do. And we had a great conversation about why this happens. And so this guy and many other men, myself included, is not because of a lack of information. We have access to all the information in the universe. And it's not because of a lack of desire. We want to change. But why is it that we can't? And it's interesting, right? Because you have to understand how we're wired. Because if it were a matter of information or desire or intention, we'd all be walking around with perfect marriages, with 6-packs, multi-billionaires. We'd have all the discipline in the world. So obviously, it's not about information. Obviously, it's not about our desire, our intention. There's got to be something else. The reason why we get hijacked is because your brain is wired to keep you safe, to keep you comfortable, to be predictable, okay? Because, listen, your brain's only job is to keep you alive, to keep you safe. And it's very, very effective, very, very efficient, right? You think about it. If your brain's responsibility is to maintain energy, to store energy, when you're laying in bed and you know you need to get up and go work out, when you are wanting to exercise, you need to maybe do like a 10-minute run or a 20-minute run or a marathon, whatever the case is, your brain is saying, hey, what? Don't do that. Don't do that. Why would you go out and expend all that energy when you could stay home and be in a surplus of energy? In fact, why don't you eat that cheeseburger? Because that's going to give you energy. Because my responsibility as your brain is to keep you alive, give you lots of energy, to keep you safe. So don't go to the gym and risk injury and expel hundreds of calories. That's not efficient. That's not effective. That's not safe. The same situation with approaching conflict in your marriage or doing anything difficult, any kind of adversity. Your brain is wired to keep you from doing that, right? So that's the reality here. But at the same time, we have to realize as men, we were built for adversity. Like when we think about our physical structure, even, we have larger muscles. Statistically, we're larger than women, right? We were built to handle more weight physically. But when we think about our mind and our emotions, we have that unique ability to contain our thoughts, to compartmentalize our thoughts, which can be frustrating to our wives sometimes because we can think about nothing. But that is in place for a reason. You are wired to be able to handle more emotionally, psychologically, because you have that ability to contain thoughts and to compartmentalize your thoughts. So it's important to understand that if anyone in your family is equipped to face challenges and adversity, it is you. You were physically, mentally, emotionally designed to take on this. But yet, every time you try, you're literally fighting against your nervous system and your brain. Why is that? Right? That's exactly why we struggle to change. That's exactly why we fail when we shoot for goals. That's exactly why we don't have the conversations we know we need to have. It's exactly why we sleep in and we don't push, or we push snooze and we don't go to the gym, right? You're fighting against your wiring every single day. But your family needs a man who can rise above his wiring, okay? So today we're going to talk about those 3 C's, the 3 things that you need to overcome that wiring, to overcome your brain's constant sort of sabotage and to pull you back into what's comfortable and what's safe. Does that make sense? So I'm going to basically let you in onto the conversation I had with my client just a couple days ago. And it was so profound and there was so much breakthrough that I thought, man, I need to share this with y'all today, okay? Listen, number 1 is C, and that's clarity, okay? You have to have clarity. Clarity about what you want, clarity about where you're going, because you can't follow through when you don't know who you're becoming. You can't get anywhere if you don't know where you want to go. It's like putting in the beach on Google Maps or Apple Maps. Well, okay, it might take you to a beach, but where? What beach? In California? On the East Coast? On some beach in the north and the south? Where does it take you? You don't know. You would never do that, right? You'd have to be very specific. You have to create a very clear picture of who you want to be, what you want, where you want to go, what kind of marriage you want, what kind of body you want. So we have to have clarity. And the reality is most men, they're unclear not because they're lazy or they're broken or anything else, but because they've never paused long enough to define the future that they actually want. And if you haven't defined what that future is, then don't be surprised when you wake up 5 years later and you're not there, or you're somewhere far different than what you had hoped for, which we're going to get into a little bit later. So I'm going to give you some tools to help you get clarity, right? Number 1. But I want to talk a little bit about something called the Solomon's Paradox, which explains another reason why it is that we don't do the things that we know we should do. So let me explain what the Solomon's Paradox is. You may have heard me talk about this before on the show, but I've gotten a lot of new listeners over the past few months. So here it is. Solomon's Paradox, it really explains this phenomenon, right? And scientists have studied this, behavioral psychologists have studied this, and what they've done is they brought people in to a lab in different situations in life. So for example, a woman who came in from a domestic abuse relationship, another couple who came in who was in an extreme amount of debt, another person who came in who was morbidly obese, okay? They talk to them about their problems. What's the challenge? Okay, I'm in debt, blah, 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 or I'm in this abusive relationship, I don't know how to get out, yada, yada, yada. And they take all the stories, they take all the information, they go in the back room, and they whitewash everything. Okay, they change some details, they change the names. And a few moments later, they come back into the room to the same people, and they take their exact situation and point it back at them, but they've removed a lot of the personal details. They will go to the person that's stuck in an abusive relationship and say, hey, we've got someone here that is stuck in this relationship and they don't know how to get out. What advice would you give them? Or we've got a situation where there's a couple who's, 100 grand in debt. What advice would you give them to get out of debt? And every single time after time, when the person was asked for the details or the best strategy on how to do the thing that they were struggling with, they knew it instantly. They knew exactly what that person, air quotes, should do, but yet it was their situation. And that explains this phenomenon. And this based off of actually the biblical character of Solomon, who was known to be one of the wisest men who ever lived. And he was wealthy, he was beyond measure, he was wise beyond measure, but he made some very, very foolish decisions in his own personal life. Lots of wisdom for other people, very poor decisions in his personal life. But this is the situation we find ourselves in so often. That's because we look at other people's lives with a telescope, and we look at our lives with a microscope, okay? We look at our lives, but everything we look at is filtered by fear. We live our lives filtered by fear, right? We don't necessarily want to do the things we know we should do because we're afraid of what people would think if we fail, right? Well, if we go for that business, or we launch that passion project, if we have that difficult conversation, if we actually told people that we're going to go try and lose some weight or do whatever, what if we fail? What are people going to think? And so it's our fear that holds us back, or a lack of, confidence, you name it. But anyways, because of this, we find ourselves getting stuck. Emotions cloud our own judgment. Fear drives our decision making. We coach others far better than we coach ourselves. So that's one reason that explains why we get stuck when we try to do it on our own. So, Solomon's paradox. Another a tool that you can think through is called the Hierarchy of Competence. And this is the 4 stages that help you understand where you're at when it comes to your own competence. And this can be applied to a skill. This can be applied to your relationships. It can be applied to your emotions, anything. And so the first level of this hierarchy is when you are unconsciously incompetent. Okay? You don't know what you don't know. You could be a terrible husband. You have no idea. You think your marriage is going great. Okay? But you're unconsciously incompetent. You're not good at something, but you don't even know that you're not good at it. A complete oblivion. The second stage is when you go from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. Okay, so this is when we finally begin to realize our gaps. This is when we finally begin to realize that maybe we don't know everything, and maybe that there's a lot more that we don't know than we do. This is a difficult place to be in, but it's an incredibly eye-opening place to be in. In the context of fitness, when we pursue, diet and nutrition and exercising, we find ourselves in this position where we are all of a sudden aware of all that we don't know, or all the work that we have to do. In situations where you find yourself in a difficult place in your marriage, where your wife is unhappy and she communicates that to you, you now are consciously aware of your incompetence as a husband or as a lover or whatever the case is. You realize now that you're some gaps, right? The third phase is consciously competent, okay? This is where you have worked on these incompetencies and you're able to be competent, but it takes a lot of thought, right? This is where intentional growth happens. For example, if you are working on your anger and your emotions, you might find yourself in a situation where you can keep your cool, but it's really hard. You got to think about it. You got to think about it a lot. You got to do the breath work. It takes a lot of intentionality. Consciously competent. And the final step, where we all want to get to, is unconsciously competent. And this is the level of mastery. This is where you are competent in something, whether it be in your job and skills, and emotions and your marriage and your fitness, whatever, where you go and do something and you don't even have to think about it. It just happens, right? So I've been a singer for many, many, many years. I studied, vocal performance professionally. I studied how to sing, how to teach how to sing, how to perform, all those different things. And when people hear me sing, they say, "Oh, it looks so effortless for you. It's so easy for you," right? Well, the reality is it's easy because it was really hard for a long time. There was a while where I was unconsciously incompetent. I couldn't sing and I didn't know I couldn't sing. Then somebody made me aware that I couldn't sing. I was consciously incompetent. I became aware. Then I started studying how to sing. Then I was consciously competent. I could sing, but man, I'd run out of breath a lot. I had to think, mentally think about the note to stay on tune. And so there was a lot of growth there. And I got to the point where now I can sing and not really have to think too much about it to sing well. I am unconsciously competent in that area. And that's why people look at me and say, well, that seems so easy for you. Well, yeah, it is, but it's not. I've had to work through the hierarchy of competence. Make sense? So in this situation, so men come to me when they find themselves at that level of conscious incompetence, right? They wake up one day and realize they have things they need to learn. Their wife is unhappy. They are overweight to get a bad medical diagnosis. They want to connect deeper with their kids. Whatever the case is. They've been great in the business world, but now it's like, man, I got to tune it in the personal life. They are dominating professionally and disconnected personally. And so I take them on a journey of being consciously incompetent to consciously competent, wherever it is that they need to develop, they do it and they think really hard about it, but they get there. And I teach them how to become unconsciously competent, where you can just keep your cool with your wife, keep your cool with your kids, and not really have to think about it. Where you just get up and go to the gym, and that's just because that's just who you are now. You show up at work, you're not distracted, you're not, focused on anything else other than what you need to be. You're super focused on your future. That's just who you are, right? It's a beautiful place to get to. And that's really what the journey is about. That explains sort of that process. Okay, so we talked about why we get stuck there. We talked about the process on a process of developing through your levels of competency. Now I'm going to give you a couple tools that I've used with my clients, and I think I've actually shared a couple of these on the podcast in the past. But number one, the first thing we do if you want to get clarity, right? First step, is to begin with the end in mind. And I call it the eulogy writing exercise, right? Now, I had my own moment, my big pivotal moment of change, my transformational moment when I was at a funeral singing, and I was literally staring at the casket of another man who died and left an amazing legacy. Simultaneously, I was in debt. I was in a very unhappy marriage. I was overweight. I was faced with my mortality in that moment. And I could see through the noise for the first time. I could see through the noise and what actually mattered to me, because I thought, what's the point in this leadership and the career and all these different things if I'm going to spend Christmas alone this year, potentially? What's the point in this success if I'm going to get a bad health diagnosis or be addicted to alcohol or drugs or whatever, or be so broke and miserable that I don't want to live anymore? I got clarity really quickly. And so what the eulogy writing exercise does is it exposes the legacy that you're on track to leave versus the legacy that you want to leave, right? And so what you want to do is sit down and write out the eulogy from the perspective of someone you love, probably your wife, right? If you're not married, maybe your kids or maybe your mother or your parent, whatever the situation is for you. What would they say about the man you are today? And write it from their perspective. So if your name is Justin, you would start it out by saying, from the perspective of your wife, as she's, standing over your coffin at your funeral, she's saying Justin was a loving man. He was a father. He was a husband. What would they say? Would they say he made a lot of money? He worked really, really hard, but he never quite showed up. He missed the recitals. He missed the soccer games. He never really made me feel valued. He never really gave to his community. Or would they say he was a present, loving father? He loved his kids fiercely. He cherished his wife. And he was passionate about the things that mattered most. He gave to his community, and his loss will be felt by thousands of people. What legacy do you want to leave? Get clear on that. Number two is one of my favorite questions, is the 3 years from now question, okay? And it's this simple. If we were to bump into each other in the airport 3 years from now, and you were to say, hey, Mitch, how you doing, man? It's been 3 years since we chatted. And I was like, whatever your name is, let's say you're Justin. I'm talking to Justin today. Justin, man, it's been forever. How's it been? And you were to say to me, Mitch, this has been the best 3 years of my life. Let me tell you about it. What would have to be true about the last 3 years of your life to make them the best 3 years of your life? What's going on, right? What would have to be true? I'm talking, you think about your marriage. You think about your kids. You think about your income. You think about your career. You think about your passions, all those different things. And you begin to write out what you would say to me if I were to see you in 3 years, and it would have been the best year of your life. Now, the reason why we say 3 years is because 5 years is a little bit too far. 10 years is certainly too far. It's hard to even wrap your head around. But 3 years, you can almost get a sense of where you're going to be. Right? So what you're going to do is you're going to write out a very, very detailed version of what your life is going to look like. So where do your kids go to school? What does your relationship look like with your wife? When do you guys go on dates? How often do you go on dates? What does your sex life look like? I mean, I'm talking everything. What kind of car are you driving? What's your salary? Where do you work? You work for somebody else or you work for yourself? What do you do in your free time? Where do you live? What does your house look like? Who are you hanging out with? When you throw a barbecue in your backyard, who's coming? Right? Get a very, very clear picture of where you want your life to be 3 years from now. And why do we do that? It's because we know that our life today is a direct result of the decisions we've made over the past 3 to 5 years. You probably heard me talk about this before. But think about it. I dare you, think back to where you were 3 to 5 years ago in 2020 to 2022. What were the decisions you were making then? And I guarantee you, it makes complete sense as to why you are where you are today. Now, I mean, it's certainly true for me. If I think about the decisions I was making in 2020 to 2022, yeah, it lines up, checks out. The thing is, though, if you like where you're at, then that's great. Keep doing it, right? Good on you. Proud of you. There's probably very few of us. But if you think that you would like things to look different, even if it's just some things, but maybe you're totally unhappy with your life. I don't know where you're at. But if there is something about your life that you're not necessarily content with or happy about, what we need to do is make different decisions today. And we need to learn how to think differently today. Otherwise, we're going to wake up 3 to 5 years from now and it's going to look the exact same thing. Because we live the vast majority of our lives on autopilot. You've heard me say that before. 95% of the decisions you make today are the exact same as the decisions you made yesterday. Okay? On a subconscious level, we're operating on autopilot. That's why years go by and nothing changes. That's why we stay stuck in cycles. So ask yourself today, what part of your life do you want to improve? What part of your life do you need to see breakthrough in? And how are you challenging your thoughts and challenging your decisions so that you are in a different place 3 to 5 years from now? So this is 2025, okay? So whether you like it or not, 2028 is coming, okay? 2030 is coming. Where do you want to be in 2028? Where do you want to be in 2030? Think about that today and start making those decisions. Think if the 2030 version of Mitch could stretch back into time and talk to you today, what would he say? What would he tell you to do? Would he tell you to go for that passion project? Would he tell you to get up and go to the gym? Would he tell you to have that difficult conversation with your wife? Would he tell you to set up those boundaries with your kids or your family members? What would he tell you to do? Right? That's so key. Get clarity. All right? Because listen, without clarity, men drift. But with clarity, men accelerate. But even clarity is not enough. You might get clarity, but you're still, even though you're clear, you still might self-sabotage because of the things that we just talked about, your internal wiring, Solomon's paradox, yada, 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 okay? So that's why we have the second key, the second lever, which is, hey, can I ask you something real quick? If this show has helped you out in any way, if you've gotten any value, clarity, or even just one gut check moment that's made you a better man, husband, or father, would you take 60 seconds and leave us an honest rating or review? And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a drop. And if you really want to pay it forward, share this episode with a friend. Why? Because we know that there are millions of men out there silently struggling in their marriage, in their health, and in their mindset. Men who maybe were where you were just a few steps ago, feeling tired, stuck, and searching for answers. Finding this podcast might be the thing that changes everything for them. So thank you for being part of this movement and for helping more men become the husbands and fathers their families so desperately need. Now let's get back to the show. So that's why we have the second key, the second lever, which is community. The brotherhood that will not let you shrink, okay? A community is essential because when you are left to your own, you will default to your old patterns. We know that. I just said this. 95% of your decisions you make today are the same as yesterday, right? So we don't make new decisions. We make the same. But the problem is isolation, when you're not being around other men that can champion you, it's going to guarantee that you're going to stay stuck in that rhythm. So let's take this home for me. Make it a little bit personal, okay? When I went on my journey, the day after that funeral, when I realized what kind of legacy I was leaving or was going to leave, I reached out to 5 men in my life. Men who were succeeding in marriage, in fitness, in their finances, in their spiritual life, different ways. Men who my ceiling was their floor. Men who were living where I wanted to be. And those 5 men held me accountable. They heard what I said I wanted for myself, my wife, my family, and they held me to that standard. It was so powerful that I've created a framework around this called the Iron 5. And I encourage every man that I work with to have their own Iron 5. And I'm going to share these 5 with you today. Because these 5 men, like when your nervous system starts to take over and you get uncomfortable and you start to panic and you get frustrated, or your brain, you're trying to make new neural pathways. It's called neuroplasticity, which is why this happens. You fight your brain. These men are going to hold you up. They're going to say, no, you can do it. And they're going to, not only are they going to encourage you, right, and surround you, but they're also going to show you by their lives, they're going to show you what's possible for you too. So they're going to give you a very clear picture of the fact that it is possible. Because if other men are winning, so can I. So you can see that it's within reach for you too. Okay, so the Iron 5, let me break it down for you. Number 1, they're all P's because I'm obsessed with alliteration. But the first guy you're going to have in your life is called your partner. Okay, this is the person who walks beside you. This is your friend in battle. This is the man who knows your wins and knows your wounds. You don't have to wear a mask with him. You're fully seen and fully known. Okay, the second one is the protector. This is the guy who watches your blind spots. This is the man who sees what you miss. This is the man who calls out your patterns, the stuff that will take you out if it's left unchecked, right? He speaks with truth, and he speaks with grace and with grit. He's not impressed by you, but he's invested in you. Number 3 is the provider. This is the guy who invests in your growth. He's a mentor. He's a coach. He's maybe a spiritual father. He's someone who's been where you want to go and is willing to open the doors, to share the wisdom, and to shorten your learning curve. Number 4 is the pusher. This is the guy who demands your best, okay? This is definitely the most uncomfortable relationship you will have, because this is the guy who will not let you coast. He pulls you out of your comfort zone, and he reminds you who you said you wanted to be. And number 5 is the pioneer. Okay, this is the guy who shows you what's possible. He's ahead of you. He's living the life that you want, and his example expands your vision. Everyone needs a pioneer. His wins remind you that your current ceiling is someone else's starting floor. Now, this comes from part of my own experience with my 5 mentors, but then also that old adage that you are the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want something different, if you want a different life, spend time with different people. Spend time with people who are living the life that you want. Does that make sense? The Iron 5. Get your own Iron 5. I'm giving you a lot of good stuff today. All right? Pause it, go back, take notes, and get strategic about finding those people in your life. So community is everything, right? Whether it's an Iron 5 or whether it's a church community or a coaching community like the one that I have, It's so important because accountability stops the self-sabotage, like I was just explaining to you. So community is so vital. All right. I mean, people ask me all the time, what was the thing that helped you stay on track? That was the thing that helped you stay focused throughout the whole thing and take this to fruition, to lose the weight, to restore your marriage, to pay off the debt, all those different things. And I would say community was such a huge part of that. It's one of the three, right? I got clarity. I had my funeral moment. I wrote my eulogy exercise. I asked those questions, what I wanted my life to look like. Then I had community. I surrounded myself with these men. Now, listen, this is what community provides, okay? It's accountability, right? To stop the self-sabotage like we just talked about, because your brain will want to keep you comfortable, to keep you safe. And these men will hold you accountable. It gives you standards to rise to, because collectively, if you have a community, you can set a standard and rise to it. And it helps you see what's possible because other people are winning too. And their example is what expands your vision. And the last thing that I love the most, and perhaps is the reason why I was able to transform my life and why I've helped so many other men do that, is because I borrowed the confidence from other men in the community. Because realistically, if you're in a situation where you're not seeing breakthrough, it's probably because you've broken promises or you've not seen success and there's been insecurity that creeped in or whatever the situation is for you. But when you're around a community of men, you can borrow the confidence from them as they hold you high until you can build it in yourself. The powerful truth today is that men rarely grow in isolation, but they exponentially grow in a brotherhood. Whatever the situation is for you, get around men and make sure they are men who are high caliber, who have high standards for themselves. Don't create a community of men who aren't doing anything with their lives. Don't create a community of men who have terrible marriages and terrible finances and are out of shape. All right? Listen, you don't want to get together because we'll be like crabs in a bucket, all right, pulling each other down. The whole point of this is to reach up to men who are living lives that you admire, that you are inspired by, okay? That's the whole point of this. And even that is uncomfortable because you typically don't hang around with these people. And it's going to cause you to think differently. It's going to cause you to live differently, make different decisions, and everything about that is uncomfortable because also the people that are currently in your life who are living at the level you're living at are going to see you start to ascend to a different way of living, and it's going to make them uncomfortable. And they're going to say things that make you uncomfortable. And they're going to say things that are going to want to make you turn it down or be someone less than you are because you want to be accepted, because we're tribal by nature. We don't want to leave the tribe because when we leave the tribe, we're no longer safe. I'm giving you permission today. Maybe you don't have to leave the tribe, but maybe bring some new people into your tribe. Okay? Or maybe have 2 tribes. Whatever you need to do, but don't let that fear hold you back from reaching up to men who are living at a different level and who aren't afraid to call you up. But even in saying all this, now that you've got clarity and you get yourself around a community of men, that's still, in my opinion, not necessarily enough. You need someone who isn't fooled by your excuses. You need someone who is ultimately going to hold you accountable, who's going to have the tough conversations, who's going to hold your feet to the fire, who's not afraid to make you uncomfortable, who's going to tell you the truth, someone who's going to tell you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear, because let's be real, that's why we are where we are, is because we surround ourselves with people who tell us what we want to hear, because that's what? Comfortable, right? It's comfortable for you to put people around you that will tell you what you want to hear, and it's also comfortable for those people to tell you what you want to hear because they know what you want to hear, so it's comfortable for them too. Everyone's comfortable, but the problem is when everyone's comfortable, no one grows. A coach is one of the only people in your life who is both for you, but not fooled by you. Okay? Here's what a great coach actually does for you. He questions your beliefs. He questions your decisions. He interrupts your patterns. He exposes your blind spots. He intentionally makes you uncomfortable. Like I said, he holds your feet to the fire when you want to quit. And he also gives you the path. He gives you the frameworks and the systems that you'd never be able to create on your own. And here's the thing. Here's my favorite part is a relationship with a great coach helps you collapse the time. So what would normally take a person 10 years, you can do in 1 year alone. Okay? This has been true for me. This was my story. It took me 10 years to get to where I am today. Me and my wife celebrated our 10-year anniversary on August 21st. This was a long time coming. I learned a lot of lessons the hard way because I didn't have a coach. I got clarity, and then I got community, which was great, and that helped me stay on track. And certainly I had that transformation, but there are a lot of other things I didn't pull the trigger on because I didn't have somebody who was really pushing me. Okay, a good coach is going to do that. And this was the conversation I had with my client a couple days ago that I'm telling you about now is I was pressing him. And I said, hey, man, I'm not here to be your crutch. I'm here to be your coach. I'm not here to be your bro. I'm not here to be your buddy. I'm here to call you up to a way of living that you know you could. And in my situation, I mean, it was a decade of grinding to get here, or to get to this point in my life. Now, here's another crazy thing is I could have easily fallen out of the race at any given time, and thank God I didn't. But not having someone in my corner, I mean, you take a risk of falling off the wagon, and totally sabotaging and risking falling back into your old patterns. And so, yeah, having a great coach collapses the amount of time, but also ensures and exponentially increases the chances of you getting to where you want to go. Like for me, it took me, 8 years, really, because for the last 2 years, I've hired coaches. And in full transparency, I've spent over 20 grand in coaching over just the last year. Just the last year. That's crazy, right? Now, to some of you who maybe this is a foreign concept would say, that's a lot of money. You could spend that doing something else. But I tell you what, I've produced far more. I've never produced more content. I've never sold more courses and content in my life. I've never helped as many men in my life. The podcast has grown exponentially over the last year. I was just posted about this on Instagram. I did my Spotify Wrapped for Creators, and my podcast grew 750% in the last year. I've never had more vision for my life. I've never grown more as a man, husband, and father. I've literally 10x'd my output. Listen, coaching doesn't just speed up your transformation, it multiplies it. And I said this on a call a little while ago with somebody who was having a hard time making the decision to jump into a coaching program with me. And I said, listen, man, I get that this is difficult for you. I get that it's difficult to make this decision because you're not really confident in yourself, because you've broken promises to yourself in the past. You've hired trainers, all these different people, but you've not necessarily followed through. And so I said, listen, don't trust yourself. Don't expect to have confidence in yourself. Have confidence in me, in the confidence that I have in you. Borrow my confidence that has been gained from my own follow through, but all the other men that I've helped. I have a high confidence in myself and my program. So, hey, lean on me for that. Trust me as I teach you to trust yourself. Your coach will lend you belief until you can build your own. And that's the fourth, I think, C here. We got clarity, we got community, we got coaching. And the C is confidence, which is kind of an honorable mention. And the reason why I didn't put it in these three is because confidence actually comes through all of these different things. It's not one on its own, but it grows as you work through these levers. You see, clarity builds confidence, but being in a strong community of men reinforces confidence. Coaching accelerates that confidence. And that's built throughout time of doing this. It's actually called the confidence competence loop, which I know I've talked about in earlier episodes. And if you don't know what that is, you could Google it. But basically, what it does is when you start anything new, you're not competent. You're also not confident. But when you start it, it's awkward. You're going to fumble. It's going to be hard. But you're going to get the courage to do the thing. Whether it's go to the gym, prepare that presentation, do that public speech, whatever that situation is for you. But what's going to happen is you're going to gain a little bit of competence in that. So you're going to get some positive feedback. Maybe somebody says, hey, that was a great presentation. That was a great speech you gave. Or maybe you're going to lose a bit of fat after working out for a little bit. Then you're going to gain some confidence. Oh, well, that thing actually worked. Maybe I should do it again. You're going to have the confidence to try it again. And then you're going to execute again, which gives you more competence. And when you become more competent, you get more feedback, which makes you more confident. And so on the cycle goes. And that's how you get to the point where you are fully confident and fully competent. Going back to this idea of me singing. That's why I can walk onto a stage in front of 2,000, 3,000 people and be confident, because I'm also competent. I've done this for so long, right? That is a no-brainer for me. So as we wrap it up today, the big thing I want you to remember is that your brain is wired to keep you safe, to keep you comfortable, and to keep you living a predictable life. But you were not built for comfort. You were made for adversity. Do not back down. Do not say no because it's hard. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, because it's hard usually means that it's probably the right thing. And your family needs a man who can rise above his wiring, because they're leaning on you to set the example. They're leaning on you to lead the way, to blaze the trail, to carve the path. So a couple questions for you as we wrap this up. Where in your life are you unclear? Where do you need clarity? Where in your life are you feeling isolated, where you need to dig into community to get your own Iron 5? Where in your life are you stuck because you're trying to self-coach and you're resisting reaching out to someone else, whether it's because of your lack of confidence or maybe some pride or arrogance, ego? Maybe you have too much pride to reach out to ask for help. And lastly, what would need to be true in your life 3 years from now for you to say, Mitch, this has been the best 3 years of my life? Now, I can't wrap up this conversation without giving you a resource or giving you a place to go, something that you can take action on immediately. And it's this: if you want all of the things that we talked about, if you want clarity, if you want coaching, if you want community, you want confidence, you can get it all in one place. And it's in a program that I'm actually unrolling over the next couple months, and it's called the High Performance Husband Accelerator. Okay, it's 1 year of coaching with me and other high performers that are on the same journey as you. And in that training program, you're going to get access to the High Performance Husband program, which is a 4-module program that is designed to help you go to whole new heights in your fitness, in your relationships, in your mindset and emotions, and in overall in your leadership, both personally and professionally. It's a powerful course that I'm launching. And this thing is 3 years in the making. It's very, very powerful. There's going to be bi-weekly group coaching calls, mentorship with me, hot seat style coaching. There's custom nutrition plans, custom training plans, tons of stuff. And we're kicking off in January. I'm prepping it all right now. I'm launching a summit with a bunch of guys. We're going to be pushing this in January. So if you want to be unstoppable, if you want to reach new heights in 2026, you need to reach out to me. Just email me at mitchell@dadnationco.com, and I will send you the information. It's private still. It's not even on the website. You won't find it there, but it's called the High Performance Husband Accelerator. It's going to be a powerful year together with us small. We're going to be a small tribe of men getting after it. Okay, listen, that's it for me today. If this has lit a fire inside you, reach out via email, Instagram, whatever the best way is for you. Get a hold of me, and let's get you into this community of men for this year, to go from January 2026 to January 2027, to make this the year you became unstoppable. All right, that's it for me, my friends. Listen, have an incredible week. I am in your corner. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. All right, remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.